All right, it is 4 o'clock. If I could ask everyone to mute your cell phones before we start our meeting. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Gary, would you please do a roll call for us?
Healy. Heine. Kettering. Loest.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Welsh.
Here.
Catholic.
Here.
Hornstra.
Here.
Burns.
All right, we do have a quorum of members present. Does any member have a reason to abstain for a financial or a non-financial conflict of interest? Let's start with Mr. Welsh.
Welsh, no.
Catholic, no. Nelson, no.
Healy, no. Yes. I mean, no.
So Hornstra's a no and Loest is a no. At this point, approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. Now for our last meeting's minutes. Mike, did you want to propose some changes to that? That you noted that we did not record our vote on banning wind from Yankton County. One thing that we need to clarify is that was for large wind. Do I get everybody shaking their head that our intent was large wind, not small wind? So we need to amend those minutes to state that was agreed on. It was 7-2 vote to essentially ban large wind from Yankton County. Were there any other changes to the minutes? Okay, with that, I would approve a motion to approve the amended minutes.
I so move.
Do I-
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the amended minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amended minutes are approved. At this time, we have public comment. And we do ask members, if you have a public comment, to limit it to 3 minutes. Do we have any comments? None. This is our first meeting with no public comment, and usually I have to scold y'all to stay within 3 minutes, so this will be easy. I will, if you would like to, just to have some public comment. So go ahead and state your name, please.
I'm Sharon Ackland, and Dave and I, my husband Dave and I have farmed in Yankton County for over 50 years. As you can see, I'm retired. That was my spiel last week. And I won't add anything to the last week, except I do have an example of some neighbors that had $1 million lien put on their property from a wind farm, from the Turkey Ridge wind farm. And they did not, or their proposal, and they did not realize that until they started to want to sell their property and couldn't get a clear title. And so it was quite a process for them to get a clear title. So that, I'm under my 3 minutes.
Thank you. All right. I will go ahead and close public comment. Thank you for keeping our batting record at 1,000. So now we are on to discuss our final version of what we are going to forward to the Planning Commission. Mr. Welsh has a few comments around the decommissioning section.
Thanks, Sherry. Get my glasses on here. Go to the beginning of the black printed new ordinance. And, excuse me, it is still in red, but it's section 2601, purpose. If you go down to would think I would have been more ready, wouldn't you?
No, it's okay.
I put you on the spot.
I know you did. It's all right.
So I think you're gonna start with decommissioning
Okay, it's in
A.
decommissioning A.
Okay.
Yep,
So decommissioning, this is very near the back, capital A, sub A. It currently states, "The plan shall specify the procedure by which the applicant or its successor will remove all structures, including equipment, fencing, roads, and foundations, and restore the area to its pre-construction condition. Any agreement for removal to a lesser depth or no removal shall be filed as a permanent encumbrance." I think when we say "or for no removal," we're leaving the door open to a possible misinterpretation. And so it would seem to me that we want to use language such that it would say "or for no above-grade removal."
could we just take out the "or for no removal"?
Yes, we could take that out. That would be
And then it would
perfectly
just
fine.
say, "Any agreement for removal to a lesser depth shall be filed"?
Yes, that'd work.
Would that work? Okay, so we will take out those 4 words.
Okay.
Perfect.
The next issue is in capital F, liability insurance. And I think it's just a typo. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line of that paragraph says of no more than $5,000, but in parentheses, the numbers are $50,000. So I'm not sure which of those two we want, but deductible of no more than 5,000 or no more than 50,000, but right now there's a conflict in the wording.
Correct.
So I'm not sure which of those two would be what the working group desires. And I don't have enough knowledge to comment on which one would be right.
Well, if you got $10 million total, it would seem that the larger of the two would be more
Probably.
appropriate, wouldn't it?
More than likely.
50,000 versus 5.
Reasonable, yep.
I think that's probably right.
All right, so the 5 should be changed to 50,
Right.
okay?
And then in the next G, indemnity, we use the word developer, and I think we meant to use the word applicant or its successor. And there are 3 locations there. It should say applicant or its successor shall hold the county and its officers and employees harmless from claims made by applicant or its successor and third parties for damages sustained or cost incurred resulting from said project. The applicant or its successor shall indemnify. So
Yep,
that just
Agreed
makes
with
the
that.
language consistent with all the rest of the way we identify who the owner is. Those are the only,
good, those are good catches.
yeah, the only things I saw.
Any other comments then on this final presentation of our 8 or 10 weeks of work?
I have one
Sir,
back on setbacks.
okay,
That's something I mentioned before, the setback of 2 miles for non-participants. And I thought, to clarify that, you're talking about if you have a non-participant on each side that's, you want 2 miles, that means you're gonna have to have a total of 4 square miles for one wind tower, which is 16 square miles, which is 10,240 acres. And that sounds excessive to me. And I bring that up in light of a comment I had from a commissioner, which was, we have to be careful not to be unreasonable in the regulations for large system wind energy conversion systems, because if they're too restrictive, we're gonna have something happen with wind power, large wind power systems, That has happened previously with other systems, including CAPOs, carbon pipelines, and solar power, can happen. And that the county can lose the ability to have regulations because the state will take it over, and the state will be then issuing the regulations, not the county. So it's a word of caution for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
And that's a very valid concern. It's always been one of my biggest fears.
So my thought there, actually, to add to that, might be to reduce that 2 miles to 1 mile.
So with that said, I think throughout our 8 or 10 meetings of discussion, this panel, majority, has leaned heavily to that 2 miles. One thing I will say is we also have a planning commission coming, and we have a county commission coming. And the county commission last time reduced the setbacks for solar that were from a task force through a planning commission, and they were changed at the second meeting at the last hearing. So, to your point, there's still 2 meetings or 2
Right.
boards to go to discuss that. But at this time, does anybody on this panel want to revisit the 2 mile, or does the majority think the 2 mile is what we want to recommend?
Well, I think the 2 mile is the minimum that we're hearing needs to be the case. And, I mean, we're not just pulling numbers out of the air. We have the citizens of Yankton County, telling us overwhelmingly they don't want these things at all. I heard 10 miles, I heard 5 miles. So I think 2 miles is reasonable, and there's nothing stopping these people from knocking on the door and making a non-participant a participant. That is not etched in stone, 2 miles. It's only 2 miles because they don't want to have to knock on somebody's door and ask. Well, sorry, you have to ask within 2 miles. And I think that is loud and clear.
Turn your microphone on. Other comments? Mike, go ahead.
I would agree with what Robert just indicated. And I think likewise, not only from what we've heard in this room, but I've had calls come to my phone restating the idea that 2 miles is a minimum that we should be considering. And then they'll say, should be 4 or 5. And I think also too, what Robert stated, with the idea that if that was to be an issue, then the developer needs to be working with those that are non-participating and work at trying to sign an agreement. So we took a vote last week at 7-2 at 2, and that's where I would be again restating that 2 miles, a minimum.
There was also a comment we heard early on in testimony. One of the previous commissioners from Bonhomme County said that was his one regret. We wanted 2, and we got 1, and I wish we had 2. That is someone who's lived through this, right up front row seat.
Other comments before we?
I will echo what has been said by Rob and Mike. And when I went to the meeting at the church up in northern Yankton County, I never heard anybody saying that they wanted the large wind energy conversion systems near their home, and I did hear comments to the effect that 5 miles or more would be a reasonable setback. So I think the fact that we're leaving the door open, we're saying 2 miles for non-participants, and we're leaving the door open to the wind energy company to knock on the door and ask for permission, and if necessary, pay for it. I think that's the American way. I think it's just, keeping in mind that when people own land, one of their rights is the quiet enjoyment of their land, not to be interfered with by unwanted outside agents. And that's why I think we came to this compromise of 2 miles for non-participating.
Okay, ladies? Any comments?
I would agree with keeping it the 2 miles, and for all the reasons everyone has already said.
Great.
I think as we go along, we're gonna hear these scare tactics of, if you put these setbacks too much, you're gonna get sued. And that's been, I've talked to planning and zoning down in Nebraska. I've talked to zoning director in Kansas, and they've said that, and to this date, they have yet to know of anybody that has actually gotten sued and have lost. So, I mean, we're gonna hear these scare tactics of, if you do this, you're gonna get sued, or, this is gonna happen. I say, just bring it on. Because here's the thing, is I have to, these people are my neighbors, and I gotta be able to, look them in the eye and say, I did what was best for you. And so I just say, with all these things said, Pierre's gonna do this, or Pierre's gonna do that. I just, bring it on. Let's see what happens. And I'll tell you what, that energy that was in that room last Tuesday night, I will put that up against anyone at any time. Because that was a group of people that were energized and they're passionate, and they want their way of life in Yankton County to continue the way it is. And not just for them, but for their children and their grandchildren. And so sitting here, I have to do what is best, or what I think is best for them, and what is best for my future generations as well.
I want to say one more thing. The only thing I want to add to that is when both of these two were talking about at that meeting at the church, nobody was speaking that they want that on their property. There were people who were there who, some of them had signed because they got pressured into it and they didn't know really what was happening. But the other thing is, those are the people that live there. They're the ones who are gonna have that next to their property. And we have some property that's kind of up that way, not in the middle of it. And one of my sons thinks he wants to possibly live out there someday. But I don't think he would if that was happening there. And some of the people who I think are involved with the wind projects that own land up there, but they don't live there. So if there are people who are saying they want it, ask them, do you live there? Is it gonna be by your house too?
So with that, I don't believe it's probably worth our while to rediscuss that recommendation and change it here. But certainly if anybody listening thinks the 2 miles is too far, you've got more chances to lobby for your side of the argument. Any other changes you want to recommend before we officially vote to send this to the Planning Commission? Do I have a comment from the audience?
Yes, I haven't been able to get to these meetings that I've been wanting to. Barely made it today, but I'm busy at this time of the day. Is this the planning, the wind, the solar planning commission meeting?
This is a task force to review the current wind ordinance for Yankton County.
Yeah, okay. I do have quite a bit on that, but
Well, we've already walked through everything, so my advice to you, sir, we went through all the setbacks and et cetera.
do you know that in Canada, they're coming up with 35 kilometers or 21.7 miles?
Yes,
As a setback?
yes. So my advice to you now is the next place this document will go is the Planning Commission. And their meeting, Gary, would be May,
Second Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
Starting next month, there'll be discussion, if everything goes fine today.
Yep.
The second month after, then we'll have a public hearing.
okay? So at a minimum, it will come before the Yankton County Planning Commission twice, in May and June, the second Tuesday. Meetings start at 7 in the evening. And then after that, it has to go to the county commission at least twice, and they meet the first and third Tuesdays at 6 PM. So that would be, so May, June, July, August type timeframe. So you do have time to comment on your opinion on this.
Yeah, what good is my opinion when you guys already put your grace out? Your whole aid.
Like I stated earlier, the document was changed after it went out of the solar task force. It was changed by both the planning commission and then the county commission. So I can guarantee you the planning commission will listen to your concerns. But what I would encourage you is to read the document that is going to be presented. Gary, we'll put this document on the website somewhere.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
What is the big hurry? Does it have to be this big of a hurry if there is?
We started meeting
More
in,
counties in the United States are rejecting it.
okay, we,
23, and then in 24, it's just unanimously rejecting this. So
we started meeting in January, and we have met once a week since January, so I don't think we're putting any rush on this. The other thing I will say is there is a wind farm proposed for Yankton County.
Yeah.
If we don't get this changed before they file with Pier, we use the current ordinance, and that's a 1/4 mile setback.
Okay, and then
So
my-
there is some sense.
In Pier, Summit Carbon Solution is determining the fate of setbacks and everything for the county in that thing. And they say those are carrying over to all green projects like wind and solar. So we may not even have a say in these anymore.
Right.
Has anybody thought of that?
There's an echo.
They're currently, Lauren, you can probably comment on this more. There's currently an effort to put that bill, SB 201,
Yeah.
to a vote of the people.
I've done petitions if people want to sign it to put it up to a vote.
So that effort is being made. And that's what you have to do. If you're concerned with that route, that is your option at this point. Otherwise, it's,
So wouldn't it be wise to wait until after that? Because we're gonna be wasting a lot of time if we don't have a say whether we have setbacks or anything. If eminent domain is gonna be the way they're gonna push these wind projects through, they're gonna set the setbacks they want, and everything ain't.
it is, in my opinion, having worked with a lot of projects in the past, it is always best to plan first, and if they overrule you later, that's their option. But if we don't have a plan in place before that, we have nothing to fall back on. So this needs to be done,
Wouldn't it be better just to say Yankton County says no until after this?
and at our last meeting, this panel recommended a ban for large wind towers. That will go to the planning commission as a recommendation first, and the county commission. But this, we are not elected officials here. We are just asked to volunteer to review these, gather information, put it in a form that we recommend.
Okay.
So-
Okay, Miss John Markworth. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's about all I have for my concerns. I wanna
Okay.
apologize, I'm way out of step on this.
So I would look for May, and that will be the first meeting for the planning commission to take public comment and input, and then they'll have a second meeting in June for that too. So, and then
May and June.
May and June, second Tuesday, 7 PM is when their meeting starts. So, and check the county's website to read the actual recommendation compared to what we currently have. So there's a huge difference between the two documents. Okay, with that,
Ma'am,
yes,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Two things I just want to bring up quick. Now, we put a ban on large commercial wind. Well, that was our first, whatever.
That,
our vote.
a recommendation.
The first option is to recommend banning it altogether. Does that start at 150 kW?
That starts with large, which is 50.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
The other thing is, did we get some verbiage in there? Maybe I don't have the right version printed up, but did we get some vibration wordage worked into that electromagnetic interference paragraph?
So that, if you look under agreements and studies B, ultra-low frequency,
Okay.
that needs to probably be determined at the planning commission at this
Okay,
point.
I just
So
want
if
to make sure it was there. I have an older
it's,
copy. I
it's
go right
in
to
there,
look
yep.
at analysis.
Yep, so it's to be determined, so if you gather some information,
Oh, it's
feed it to
listed
Gary.
as a date, but to be determined. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yep, because we really didn't have anything to put in there.
I'll work on that.
So if you would, and then you can funnel that to Gary, he'll get it to the planning
Okay,
commission.
yeah, just some general something, I think it should be
Yep.
called out.
So,
Thank you.
other comments before I entertain a motion from someone to approve the document with the changes we did today?
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to recommend this document to the planning commission with the few changes we discussed today. Any further discussion?
As Plan B.
Yes, yep. So, I'm on the planning commission, Mike's on the planning commission, we'll make that clear,
Okay.
that this is our, call it a backup plan, if you will.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 1. All right. Any final public comment before I ask for a meeting to adjourn? Thank you all for coming. Some of you have been here many times, and we appreciate your input on that. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all of your time on this.